The best day of my life. Chapter 1. ... It was a bright morning in early spring. I woke up before the alarm. I hadn't slept well the night before. My wife was lying next to me, breathing slowly. Today was the day we had been waiting for. After months of hoping and planning, it was finally happening. We were going to meet our baby. I felt nervous, but also very happy. We had packed everything the night before. The hospital bag was ready by the door. I made a quick breakfast, but I could hardly eat. My wife smiled and said, "It's time." I helped her get into the car. The sky was clear and the streets were empty. It felt like the whole world was waiting with us. Every minute felt special. At the hospital, a nurse welcomed us warmly. She walked us to a quiet room. It smelled like soap and medicine. My wife changed into a gown and lay down on the bed. I sat beside her, holding her hand. A doctor came in to check her and said, "It will take some hours. Try to relax." But I couldn't relax. Time moved very slowly. I kept looking at the clock. My wife was calm, breathing slowly through the pain. I tried to stay strong for her. I held her hand and whispered soft words. Sometimes she smiled. Sometimes she closed her eyes and stayed quiet. I didn't know what else to do, so I just stayed with her. Hours passed, and the pain got stronger. The nurse came in more often. The doctor came back and said, "Not long now." I could see both fear and strength in my wife's eyes. She was so brave. I felt helpless, but I never left her side. We were in this moment together, and I wanted her to feel safe. Finally, the doctor said it was time. Everything started happening fast. Nurses moved around quickly. The doctor gave instructions. My wife started to push. Her face turned red, and she cried out. I held her hand and counted with her. My heart was beating so fast I could hardly breathe. Then I heard it. A baby's first cry filled the room. The doctor smiled and said, "It's a girl." My wife looked at me with tears in her eyes. I couldn't stop crying either. I had never felt anything like it before. The nurse wrapped the baby in a blanket and placed her in my wife's arms. She was tiny, warm, and perfect. I sat beside them and looked at our daughter. Her little hands looked like tiny stars. Her eyes were closed, and she made small sounds. I touched her hand, and she held my finger. That small touch went deep into my heart. In that moment, I knew my life had changed forever. I was not just a man anymore. I was a father. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Those 2 days felt like a dream. I hardly slept, but I didn't care. I spent every moment looking at my daughter. She was so small, so quiet, and so perfect. Her little fingers, her tiny nose, her soft skin. Everything amazed me. I couldn't believe she was really mine. I had waited for this day for so long, and now it was real. My wife was tired, but she smiled every time she held the baby. I brought her water, helped her sit up, and made sure she had everything she needed. She looked at me and said, "You're already a great father." That made me smile. I didn't feel like I was doing much, but I wanted to be strong for both of them. They were my whole world now, and I wanted to protect them. The nurses were kind and helpful. They showed us how to hold the baby, how to change her diaper, and how to feed her. I listened carefully and tried to remember everything. Every small task felt big to me. The first time I changed her diaper, I was very nervous. My hands shook and I made a mess. But the nurse just laughed and said, "Don't worry. All new dads do that." That made me feel better. On the second night, the baby cried a lot. I walked around the room with her in my arms. I whispered songs and talked to her. She didn't understand the words, but I think she liked the sound of my voice. After a while, she stopped crying and fell asleep on my chest. I looked down at her and felt something deep inside me. It was love, a strong love that I had never felt before. When it was time to leave the hospital, I felt nervous again. The nurse placed the baby in her car seat and showed me how to buckle it properly. Chapter 2. I checked everything twice before we left the hospital. I made sure the car seat was in the right place, buckled tight and safe. I drove slowly, much slower than usual. Every little bump on the road felt huge. It was like I could feel every crack and stone under the tires. I kept glancing into the mirror, checking on our daughter in her car seat. I wanted to make sure she was okay, even though I knew she was safe. My wife laughed gently and said, "Relax. You're doing fine." I smiled at her, but I couldn't loosen my hands on the steering wheel. I gripped it tightly the whole way home. My mind kept going over everything. The hospital, the birth, and now this brand new life sitting right behind me. I wanted to be perfect. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as when we left it, but somehow it felt completely different. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a home, our baby's first home. It felt warmer, fuller, alive in a way it never had before. We had prepared the baby's room weeks ago. We had picked soft colours for the walls, and tiny toys sat neatly on the shelves. A small mobile hung over the crib, spinning slowly. I walked into the room, my wife close beside me, and carefully placed our daughter into her crib for the first time. She opened her eyes slowly and looked around, blinking at the new world around her. My wife and I stood there, side by side, just watching her. We didn't speak, we didn't need to. It was a quiet and beautiful moment, filled with a love too big for words. That night, we didn't sleep much. She woke up many times, her little cries filling the night air. I helped with the feeding, changing, and rocking. My body felt heavy with tiredness, but my heart stayed full. Every cry, Every little noise she made felt important. Each sound told us she was alive, that she needed us, and I didn't mind getting up again and again. I knew deep inside that this was the beginning of something new. Life wasn't just about me and my wife anymore. It was about her too. Everything had changed. Life was harder now, sure, but it was also more meaningful than ever before. I wasn't just a husband now. I was a father. I had someone tiny and helpless who depended on me completely. Before I finally closed my eyes that night, I turned and looked at my wife and daughter. They were both sleeping peacefully. My wife's face looked soft and tired, and our daughter's tiny hands rested near her cheeks. I felt proud, lucky, and so full of love that it made my chest ache. I whispered softly into the darkness, "This is the best day of my life." And deep down, I knew there would be many more beautiful days ahead. I just had to take them one day at a time. The next morning, before the sun even rose, I woke up again. The house was completely silent. I got up and padded softly to the baby's room. She was still asleep in her crib, her little chest rising and falling with each tiny breath. Her tiny hands were curled near her face, and she looked so peaceful that it made me smile. I whispered, "Good morning, little one," even though I didn't want to wake her. I just wanted her to know I was there. After a moment, I slowly closed the door and went to the kitchen to make some coffee. As I waited for it to brew, I leaned against the counter and thought about the past few days. Everything had changed so fast, but inside I felt different in a good way. I was still the same person, but now I had a bigger purpose. I had a new reason to get up every morning, to be better, stronger, kinder. I had someone who would need me every moment of every day. It was a huge responsibility, but it didn't scare me. I welcomed it. I had dreamed about this for so long. Now it was real, and I was ready. Later that day, we had our first visitors. My parents came to meet their granddaughter. When my mother saw the baby, she cried happy tears. She touched the baby's tiny hands and cheeks with trembling fingers. My father, who was usually so quiet, smiled wide and said, "She looks like you." Hearing him say that made my heart warm. They brought gifts, soft blankets, little clothes, homemade food, and stayed for a while. I watched them hold the baby so carefully, so lovingly. It was clear they already loved her so much. Watching them made me feel even more grateful. In the evening, I gave my daughter her first bath at home. I was nervous, but careful. I filled a small tub with warm water and gently lowered her in. She moved a little and made small, curious sounds. I used a soft cloth to wash her tiny body. The whole time, I talked to her in a calm voice. I said things like, "You are safe. Daddy is here. You're doing great, little one." She looked at me with wide, trusting eyes. I didn't know if she understood, but I spoke to her anyway. I want her to feel safe and loved. After the bath, we wrapped her in a soft, fluffy towel. My wife dressed her in clean clothes, and she looked so fresh and sweet that I felt like my heart could burst. We sat together on the couch afterward. My wife leaned her head on my shoulder, the baby sleeping soundly in her arms. I looked at them and felt a happiness so deep it almost made me cry. The day had been long, full of new experiences and emotions, but I wasn't tired. I felt peaceful. I felt calm. That night, when everyone else was asleep, I stayed up for a little while by myself. I sat quietly in the living room, thinking about the future. I thought about teaching her to walk, to talk, to ride a bike. I thought about her first day of school, her first friends, all the adventures we would have together. I knew there would be hard days too, days when I would feel tired or frustrated or scared. But I was ready for those days. I was ready to grow alongside her, to learn how to be the best father I could be. The next morning, I decided to start a small tradition. I wrote a short note, just a few simple words. You are my joy. You are my heart. I will always be here for you. I folded it carefully and placed it in a small box. I decided that box would be for memories, pictures, little drawings, notes and letters. One day, when she is older, I'll give it to her, so she can see how much she was loved right from the very beginning. Every day with her feels special now. Even the hard moments feel important. Life has a new rhythm, slower, softer, deeper. I don't need anything big or fancy to feel happy anymore. A tiny smile, a quiet yawn, a small sigh. Those are the things that light up my world now. This is a brand new chapter of life, and I want to write every page with love. The days started to pass more quickly. Each day brought something new. Our daughter made tiny sounds, moved her hands, and looked around more with curious eyes. I watched her learn, slowly, and every little thing she did felt like magic. I never thought something so small could change my whole world so much. She was just a baby, but she'd already taught me patience, love, and wonder. One morning, I was holding her by the window. The sun came through the glass and landed gently on her face. She blinked at the brightness and gave a tiny smile. That one small smile made my whole body feel warm. I smiled back at her and said, "Good morning, sunshine." I knew she didn't understand the words yet, but I said them anyway. Talking to her made me feel close to her, made me feel like we were already building something strong between us. We had hard days too. There were times when she cried for hours and we didn't know why. We tried everything: feeding, changing, rocking, singing. Some nights we barely slept. My wife was exhausted and so was I. But we never gave up. We helped each other. We took turns holding her, rocking her, comforting her. We stayed strong because she needed us. She needed to know we would always be there, no matter what. When she was about a week old, we took her on her very first walk outside. It was a warm day. The trees were full of bright green leaves, and the birds sang sweet songs. I pushed the stroller slowly while my wife walked beside me. People passing by smiled when they saw the tiny baby tucked in safely. Some even said, "She's beautiful," and we smiled back proudly. She was our little star. When we got home that day, I opened my journal, a plain notebook I hadn't used much before, and I wrote about it. I wrote about her first walk, her tiny smile, the way she looked up at the sky with wide eyes. I wanted to remember every moment. I wanted to save these memories because I knew the days would fly by faster than I could imagine. I didn't want to forget a single thing. And as I closed the journal and looked at my sleeping daughter, I promised myself again. I would be there for all of it, every smile, every tear, every step of the way. Chapter 3. One night while I was feeding her, she looked right into my eyes. It wasn't just a quick look. It was deep, calm, and full of something I couldn't explain. In that small moment, I felt like she really knew me, like she understood that I was her father. I felt like she trusted me. It was such a small thing, but it stayed in my heart long after she fell asleep. I kept thinking about it. I wanted to be the kind of father she could always trust, the kind of man she could always count on. Every week, I noticed new changes. She was growing a little more each time. Her little sounds were getting louder and clearer. Her big eyes would follow us when we moved around the room. She started smiling more often too, and every time she did, it felt like a tiny miracle. Every little change felt like a gift to me. I started taking lots of pictures and videos, wanting to save every moment. I sent them to our family and friends, and everyone loved her so much. She brought so much happiness into the world just by being here. Sometimes I would just sit by her crib and watch her sleep. Her face looked so peaceful, her breathing soft and steady. In those quiet moments, I would think about how lucky we were. Life had given us something so special, something that made everything feel brighter. I knew there would be hard days ahead, and easy ones too, quiet days and noisy ones. But no matter what, they would all be full of love, and that was all I ever needed. One morning, I stood near the window, holding her gently in my arms. The sunlight came through the glass, warm and soft. Her little eyes followed the beams of light dancing across the room. Her tiny hands moved slowly in the air, reaching for the brightness. I smiled down at her, and after a second, she smiled back. It was a small smile, but it filled me with a warmth I had never felt before. I stayed there, holding her close, enjoying the stillness and the magic of that moment. That weekend, we visit her grandparents again. As soon as we walked in, their faces lit up with happiness. My mother took her in her arms right away, kissing her soft cheeks over and over. My father rocked her gently, making soft noises to make her laugh. And she did. She laughed, a small bubbling sound, and we all laughed with her. It felt like being in a happy dream. These little visits made us feel even closer as a family. They were simple moments, but they mattered so much. At night, when the house was quiet, I often thought about her future. I wondered what kind of person she would grow up to be. Would she be quiet and thoughtful, or strong and outgoing? Would she love reading books or dancing in the living room? So many questions ran through my mind. But through all the wondering, I knew one thing for sure. No matter what, I would be there for her. I would support her and love her every step of the way. One afternoon, I saw something that made my heart swell. Soft music was playing in the living room. My wife was dancing gently, holding our daughter close. She moved slowly, swaying with the music, and the baby looked up at her, smiling. I stood quietly at the door, watching them. It was such a simple moment, but it was filled with so much love. I knew I would remember that scene forever. In the evenings, we started a new habit. We would take slow walks outside with her in the stroller. The air was cool, and the world felt calm. Usually, the baby would fall asleep during the walk, and my wife and I would enjoy the peace. Sometimes we talked, and sometimes we just walked in silence, enjoying the quiet company. Those walks helped us breathe, helped us feel strong again after long, tiring days. I also started writing small letters to her, little notes about our days, about how I was feeling, about my dreams for her future. I wrote about love, about family, about all the things I wanted her to know. I placed the letters carefully in a box. One day, when she's older, I plan to give them to her. I hope they will make her smile and help her see just how much she was loved from the very beginning. I also started writing small letters to her, little notes about our days, about how I was feeling, about my dreams for her future. I wrote about love, about family, about all the things I wanted her to know. I placed the letters carefully in a box. One day, when she's older, I plan to give them to her. I hope they will make her smile and help her see just how much she was loved from the very beginning. Sometimes, when I thought about the big world outside, I felt a little scared. I knew it could be tough and full of challenges. But every time I looked at her, I felt hope. She made me want to stay strong, to focus on today, and to build a better future for her. She needed me, and I was ready to be the father she deserved. Before bed every night, I would check on her. I would peek into her room, watch her sleeping peacefully, and whisper, "Good night, my star." Then I would smile and head to bed myself. No matter how tired I was, I went to sleep feeling happy. I knew these days, these small, beautiful days, were the best part of my life. Time kept moving, and every day with her felt like a new gift. She started making new sounds, little babbles that filled the house with life. She laughed louder now and loved reaching for our faces with her small hands. I watched her discover her hands, her feet, and her voice, and each discovery felt like a huge event. I never got tired of it. Every little thing she did filled me with pride. Even when it was something as small as a tiny yawn or a sleepy smile. Her world was growing, and so was mine. We started a bedtime tradition, reading to her every night. Even though she didn't understand the stories yet, she listened closely. Her big eyes would follow the pictures in the books. My wife would read the words slowly, and I would turn the pages. Sometimes the baby would make little noises, like she was trying to join the conversation. It became one of our favorite parts of the day. The room would feel peaceful. The soft light would glow around us, and our hearts would be so full. We weren't just reading stories, we were making them. One cold morning, something new happened. Her first tiny tooth came in. She had been crying a lot that week, and none of us got much sleep. But when we finally saw that tiny white tooth poking through her gums, we were so proud. I picked her up and whispered, "You're growing up so fast." My wife, even though she was tired, laughed happily. That little tooth was a reminder that time was moving forward. It made me proud, but it also made me a little sad. Part of me wanted her to stay small forever. We kept taking lots of pictures. Her first real smile, her first favourite toy, the first time she sat up by herself. I saved them all in albums. I even printed some out and put them on the walls at home. Every photo was a memory, a piece of our story together. When I looked at those pictures, I could feel all the love filling our house. They reminded me of what really mattered: family, love, and time spent together. I knew I would treasure those pictures forever. Some nights, when the house was quiet and everyone was asleep, I would sit alone and think about the day she was born. I remembered everything. The rain falling outside, the rush to get to the hospital, the first time I saw her tiny face. That memory stayed fresh in my heart, no matter how much time passed. It was the day everything changed for the better. I didn't know much about being a father when she was born. I had fears, doubts, and questions. But from the first moment I saw her, I knew I would do whatever it took to be the best father I could be. As she kept growing, my love for her only grew deeper. It wasn't always easy. We had sleepless nights, tough moments, and days when everything felt hard. But the love we had made it all worth it. Love gave us the strength to keep going. Love helped us stay patient through every tear, every cry, every tiny victory, every tear, every smile, every hug, they were all part of our journey together, and I wouldn't trade a single moment for anything in the world. Now, when I look at her, I still feel that same burst of joy. She changed my life in the most beautiful way. She made me a better man, a stronger man. Being her father is the greatest gift I have ever been given. This isn't just a memory to me. It's a story I will tell again and again. And every time I tell it, I will smile and say, that was the best day of my life.